Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 6:30.
WMAL.
7:37 on the Morning Majority. Happy Monday to you. James Carafano joins us now, Senior Research Fellow for National Security at the Heritage Foundation. It was a tough weekend, for sure, for the U.S. military and for all Americans, for that matter, as a Chinook helicopter was shot down, apparently by the Taliban. 30 Americans dead, including 22 Navy SEALs, also 8 Afghans on board as well. James, how big of a blow is this to the military? I mean, to lose 22 Navy SEALs in one fell swoop is difficult to swallow.
Well, it's always tough when you lose any soldier. You lose them in numbers like this, and it's particularly bad. This isn't the first time this has happened. We actually kind of eerily similar. We had a case a few years ago. A guy won a Medal of Honor where the Chinook helicopter taken out was, again, on a rescue mission. Again, had a bunch of special ops guys on board. These are very big, old helicopters. They carry a lot of people in them. It's hard to have a helicopter crash that's not kind of catastrophic when it's been hit in the air. So.
Is it normal procedure for them to fly that many guys in one helicopter?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be the big question everybody's asking is what's called the tactics. In other words, whenever you send people out on a rescue mission, we know that the Taliban are going to try to ambush or target them. That's kind of standard tactics. So if people think back to the old Cowboys and Indians movies, they would shoot one of the troopers, right? And when the other ones went out to rescue them, they'd shoot them, right? So they would use that guy as bait. Well, this is what the Taliban do is they ambush somebody and then they wait for the rescue guys to come, and then they use IEDs or RP or these rocket-propelled grenades or cruise missile weapons, and they try to basically layer on the casualties. So apparently that's what happened here. So you have to ask the question is what kind of tactics were they using? What altitude were they flying at? It's very, very difficult. I mean, I think that it's commonly believed it was taken down by what's called an RPG. Basically, it's a grenade on the end of a rifle. It's like a little mini rocket.
Right.
They're not guided or anything, so you can't use countermeasures against them. But they're very, very inaccurate, and they're very short range. So to get a hit on a helicopter like this, that's kind of a lucky blow.
That was dumb luck, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you got to ask, kind of what was going on. So there's just a lot of unanswered questions as to how you could create a condition that something like this can happen.
The Chinook helicopter is a huge target when it's in hover mode.
It is, and it's very slow moving, and it has, like I said, limited countermeasures. It's not and then the question is, well, why weren't you doing something like Black Hawk is a smaller, more nimble helicopter that also has pretty big payload in the long range. Why, for example, weren't you using kind of 3 Black Hawks, with a couple of people in each rather than one giant Chinook? So, again, these are all questions that we really can't answer.
Do you think we'll ever get the answers, and should we ever get the answers to know exactly what they were doing and why they were on those missions?
Yeah, we'll get a lot of information. I mean, one of the things they're doing now is they're actually going out fighting to retrieve the helicopter and anything that's left and that kind of stuff. So they'll do a big investigation, and they'll, I think at the end, have a pretty good idea of why this happened. The most terrible thing to say is, look, people die in war. That's the reality of it. It's tragic. But if your notion is we ought to have casualty-free war, then you're in the wrong business. I got to mention that these guys were special operations guys. There is a thing called the Special Operations Warrior Fund. It's an incredible private philanthropy thing. This is run by the special ops communities themselves, and other people contribute as well. But when a special operations soldier dies in a combat or a training accident, they make sure that their kids go to college, and they will pay for those kids to go to college no matter what college in the country they go to. It's just an amazing act of generosity and give back.
Well, I know the special ops community and the Navy SEALs community in particular are very tight-knit, and so at least these families in a time of tragedy will have somewhere to go for support. So that's something. Yeah,
it was said that some of these guys were on SEAL Team 6, but none of them were involved in the bin Laden raid. Isn't it probably true, though, that even if they were, they wouldn't confirm that fact?
Yeah, likely it's not the guys that actually were involved in that raid they took out of the country. I mean, the last thing they'd want is for somebody to be involved in that thing to be captured. Look, to make them, doubt about it, no matter how they do this, the Taliban is going to kind of play this as a victory. This just goes back to the problem with our strategy to begin with. When you basically say, look, we're leaving, and that's it, then anytime the enemy has any success, they can always, it's always like sticking a thumb in your eye, and they can say, we're forcing you out, you're running away. And this is part of the narrative. I mean, this is the narrative that bin Laden established when he first wrote the fatwas. We killed them in Somalia, they ran away. We killed them in Libya. We killed them. Of course, he had nothing to do with any of these, with Somalia or Lebanon or any of these other things. But it makes it sound like America is a paper tiger, and unfortunately, I think this administration's wanting to set everything to match up with the timeline for the elections and show that there's a clear glide path out. Is really kind of setting themselves up for a fall. I mean, the most tragic thing that could happen is you could let the Taliban reestablish space in Afghanistan. Then Al Qaeda can reconstitute themselves. They can back and forth between Afghanistan and Pakistan. The Pakistanis won't get serious about this. You're going to be sitting there someday. They're going to have a base in Yemen and a base in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and you'll be right back to where you were on September 10th, 2001. And then the loss of all these folks who went out there and they're fighting to win. They're not fighting to leave. They're fighting to win. Are sacrificed for nothing.
James, let me ask you for an update on Syria. Bashar Assad, who I believe Hillary Clinton called a reformer maybe 2 months ago,
right.
Still killing people in the streets. We do not have troops there, unlike some of the other places in the Middle East where this Arab Spring happened. What's going on there, and should the administration be doing anything there, diplomatically or otherwise?
Certainly, as in most of the Arab Spring, we've definitely been leading from behind, and this is no exception. So as it became obvious that things were just getting out of control there, eventually our administration said, well, these really aren't very good people. Well, gee, thanks, the Saudis just withdrew their ambassador. So now we have matched moral, turpitude with the Saudis. But I think that's a big deal. That's a real line in the sand But here's the flip side. Last time there was a big uprising like this, they killed 10,000 people. They've only killed about 2,000, so they've got 8,000 to go. I mean, these guys are. They're not going to go quietly into the night. I think, and of course, they're getting support from Iran. But clearly, I think everybody is stunned about the ferocity of the opposition, despite the incredible violence that the government's perpetrated on them. Who knows where this one's going.
All right, James. Good to have you on the program, as always. We appreciate your insights.
Thanks for having me.
Jim Carafano, Senior Research Fellow for National Security at the Heritage Foundation.